This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Mauricio Sulaiman, the president of the WBC. Been a while, Mauricio. How are you keeping?
Fine, fine. Good to see you. I saw your colleague in Miami, so I thought maybe you abandoned the monthly shows that we had. But I was getting nervous, but I'm very happy to see you again.
No. Yes, you did. You did see Andy Perual of Boxing Social was out there in Miami for Canelo versus Yildirim. He was also there for Canelo versus Callum Smith before Christmas. I think he's another honorary journalist of the WBC. So I'm glad you're able to catch up with him. But we're back now. It's always good to catch up with you. Before we kind of come on to bits and pieces, let's talk about Canelo in Miami. Let's pick it up with the post-fight interview that you did with Andy, where you spoke about the mandatory situation and the fact that you weren't particularly pleased with what you saw on the night, and the WBC, as far as I can see, and as far as what we saw in that interview, are looking into the mandatory process and potential changes to make.
Well, we are the standard of boxing, and the mandatory rule was introduced by the WBC many years ago. It is a great rule. It creates justice and fairness. And basically, sometimes what it's on paper and what's a procedure does not turn out to be what is expected. So, like in the Super Bowl, everybody expected a great game, Kansas City against Tampa. Kansas City was the favorite, but at the end, it was a boring game. Nobody really got what they expected. Tampa overpowered Kansas City. And this same thing happened. Canelo, just too much. He's the best fighter in the world. He's superior. He's an unbelievable shape. He's at his prime. Speed, power, precision, defense, attack. And he was in the attack mode. He wanted to win convincingly by a knockout, and he just was too much overpowering over Yildirim. Yildirim had earned the mandatory position in the ring in a fight with Dirrell, and it was the WBC voted for a rematch. Things happened, then the pandemic and so many things got in the way, and I was not satisfied with the end result. And the WBC is discussing this matter internally, and we have to understand that every rule needs to be upgraded and revised eventually. And I feel very satisfied. I'm not blaming anyone, not blaming Yildirim or the process. It just happened that way. But there's many things that we can improve, and that's what we are searching for.
Now, I appreciate you just said that the WBC would like to handle it internally, but the fact that you've said that you're looking at potential ways to improve the mandatory system or improve the ranking system, could you give me an example?
Yes, I mean, a fighter who earns the mandatory position has rights, and then that's how so many legal problems have come in the past. So we are looking into the rules in the wording and the structure. I believe that this time with the pandemic, having fighters 1 year away from the ring, having fighters who earned that status, but have not been able to train properly, have not been able to have a mental and physical fitness to be ready to go to the great stage. It's just something that there's to need to have options to review specific situations, and that's what we are doing right now.
Just another thing for that card. Obviously, we saw a matter of days before the fight, Julio Cesar Martinez was forced to withdraw from his bout against McWilliams Arroyo. What's the timescale for him returning to the ring, and is it going to be McWilliams Arroyo next for Julio Cesar Martinez?
Well, it's supposed to be. Martinez fractured his wrist, and when I returned from Miami, he immediately called me. He was running already, and he said he's ready to fight, and he just wants to fight Arroyo. So there's no confusion. He just wants to be considered the world champion. And I just told him, you have to take your time to heal. Let's see how your medicals come, how the doctor evaluates, and then we will see. But he's just eager to get into the ring with Arroyo.
Final thing on that night, a few weeks back now in Miami. Did you enjoy Jay Balvin's? I'm not sure if it's the correct pronunciation. Jay Balvin, his entrance. I thought it was very good.
You know, he's from Colombia, and I had the
Hispanic rapper.
opportunity to meet him, and what a wonderful person. I was so surprised, very humble, very nice, very appreciative. He was so excited. This was only his second fight ever. He's a big boxing fan, but this is only the second time he goes to a live event, and it was a tremendous entrance. It was unbelievable. I believe that this element brings great interest to boxing. Great entrance like this with the popularity. I overall it was sensational for the great stage at the Miami Dolphin Stadium, uh, which, by the way, sounded like if it was completely full. The crowd was very, very enthusiastic and very loud. It was a great, great moment to relive what we had been missing for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. It felt like there was big time boxing back. It was nice to see something like that. Even for me, it was 4 o'clock in the morning in the UK. It gave me a little bit of a perk, so I enjoyed that.
Yes.
Moving on now, tonight there's a real big fight, and the WBC title is one of many titles on the line in Chocolatito versus Estrada 2. First and foremost, what a brilliant fight for boxing fans around the world. Talk to me about that fight, Mauricio.
It's a great fight between two champions. This is a long awaited rematch. When Chocolatito was a flyweight champion, he made a title defense, maybe light flyweight, I don't recall. He made a title defense against Estrada, and it was a very, very good competitive fight. It was the first time that Chocolatito was uh, put into a real test in the ring, and it was a close fight. Many people even thought that Estrada should have won the fight. There was controversy, but he won clearly on the scorecards. And he continued to have a great legendary career, Chocolatito. Estrada became champion. Then he moved up to super flyweight. And what Tom Loeffler began with the Superfly series, now it's a reality. I'm so proud to see how a promoter, a vision, prove that it's things can be done to get fans into the sport, even in the light divisions. Tom Loeffler put this series involving Chocolatito, Rumbisai, Estrada, Cuadras, Arroyo, and it has just been a great series of action, great fights. Rumbisai won last night, so he's ready to face the winner. But this is going to be has all the elements to be an epic fight. Chocolatito, great champion. Estrada, the current WBC champion, unification bout. It should be a great match.
You mentioned Sarissa Quetzal Rungvisai there. As you mentioned, he boxed last night UK time for me. Came through in 3 rounds. Is that next? Will that fight be ordered next by the WBC to face the winner of Chocolatito Estrada 2?
Yes, Rungvisai is a mandatory contender. I'm very happy he took a fight to be active, talking about what we have been discussing. And he's next. Rungvisai defeated Chocolatito twice, defeated Estrada once, and then lost the title to Estrada. So there's a great element of interest in these combinations.
Okay, well, before we go and talk about some of the other divisions in the sport, let's talk about a fight that was recently ordered by the WBC in the featherweight division. Ray Vargas versus Gary Russell. Now, that's an outstanding fight. Have we got any idea as to when a time frame for that is potentially?
We had a purse bid scheduled. It was canceled. They communicated to the WBC they had reached an agreement. So we're just waiting for the details of where and when the fight will take place.
Brilliant fight that. I'm very much interested in that fight. Ray Vargas moving up in weight. He's also huge, so he'll move up in weight and still probably be the bigger man on the night.
Yes, he's very tall and he's a big fighter. He had been struggling making the division, the super bantamweight, and he's just so much waiting to get into the ring and become champion in the featherweight division. Gary Russell is the longest reigning champion, great quality. So it should be a sensational match.
Okay, moving on to the lightweights. Always a confusing topic, always an interesting topic to discuss, the lightweight division. What's happening at the minute with the WBC lightweight division? If you give me your version, then we can break it down.
Yes, of course, we began the year with a bang with Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell. Tremendous fight, January the 2nd. We have been in communications with all camps uh, to see what is it that is doable. A fight of that magnitude, both sides, Haney and Ryan Garcia, wish it to be held with public, with a sold-out stadium. So Haney is going to do a defense against Linares, and the winner has to face Fortuna. Fortuna had a signed contract to fight Linares, and due to COVID last year, that fight did not take place. And Fortuna uh, has accepted Linares to face Haney with the condition that the winner faces him within 90 days. We understand Teofimo Lopez is doing the IBF mandatory uh, I believe, June. And we're waiting for Ryan Garcia to see what is going to be his next step. But what we have right now confirmed is Haney against Linares and the winner fighting Fortuna.
You mentioned Haney versus Linares. I spoke to Eddie Hearn before Devin Haney boxed Yuriorkis Gamboa. Obviously, I've caught up with him since then. And the plan was always to be the interim champion, Ryan Garcia, because obviously he beat Luke Campbell, versus the winner of Devin Haney versus Yuriorkis Gamboa. How come that fight can't be made? We can see fans now in America. Texas is now opened up. Las Vegas is soon to open up. There's fans around, as you mentioned, even with Canelo a few weeks ago, and the situation is changing. Why did Devin Haney fight Jorge Linares when he has an interim champion in waiting as well as a mandatory challenger in waiting?
Well, we discussed this with both camps. I was talking with Mr. Haney continuously, talking to Golden Boy and talking to Garcia side. And what they both requested was to give more time for that fight to build up.
Being the fact that Devin's been WBC champion since I believe December time of 2019, I believe is when he won the title against Abdullayev. He's not boxed a mandatory challenger yet. Now, I know he had the period of time where he was out of the ring, but he's still yet to box a mandatory. Now, conventionally, customarily in boxing, when you win a vacant title or an interim title and you're elevated, you often get a mandatory straight away. Now, Devin Haney,
you have two. When you win a vacant title, you have two mandatories.
Yes.
Haney, this is such a confusing
always
division.
Confusing when we're talking about the lightweights, isn't it? But let's try and make sense of it.
If we go back, if you want me to run
no,
through again.
Let's start for Devin Haney. It's okay. We've gone through the stuff previously. Devin Haney and the mandatories. Why is he not boxing a mandatory, or has he not boxed a mandatory yet?
Well, because he first was to fight a final elimination, then it was an interim title. He won the interim title. When Lomachenko was designated franchise, he became the world champion. He made a title defense in a very short notice, November. And then he suffered an injury. He was placed as champion in recess. And so that completely changed the scenario of the division. We ordered Fortuna against Campbell for the title. They had a signed contract to fight for the title. Then the pandemic came. During the pandemic, Haney recovered. And when he recovered, the order for a fight between Fortuna was going to fight Linares and Campbell was going to fight Garcia. So the WBC allowed a voluntary defense with Gamboa. That's explanation, very clear. And he has the commitment to fight the winner of Campbell Garcia, and also the commitment to fight Fortuna, who was mandatory because of the Linares situation. So that's the scenario. He's going to do Linares. The winner has to fight Fortuna within 90 days.
And the situation with Ryan Garcia at the minute is obviously he has the interim title. Obviously, we've gone over this on several instances. Having a franchise champion, a full champion, and an interim champion, as well as a mandatory that hasn't been observed yet or taken care of yet. How come the WBC haven't ordered Devin Haney to face an interim champion or ordered him to face his mandatory challenger?
I just told you I just gave you the whole rundown.
You gave me the
When
rundown of
he,
what fights are happening and when, but not why the WBC didn't order it.
when Haney recovered from his injury,
Sure.
both mandatories or both mandates were to take place. They were busy. They were scheduled. Linares was going to fight Fortuna for the first mandatory, and Luke Campbell was going to fight Ryan Garcia. So they were busy. We allowed Haney. He's a champion. Why should he wait for the mandatories to develop? So we gave him a tune-up. It was accepted and it was perfectly correct. Now we are dealing every single case. We are analyzing the whole situation. The pandemic has changed everything, and we are having the WC voted in favor a year ago to consider every single aspect of the situation on every division. So when in January, when Garcia defeated Campbell, we've been in communications with Haney and with Campbell, with Garcia. So this is the end result. He's going to fight Linares. Garcia can do a voluntary defense, and the winner of Linares, Haney, has to fight Fortuna next.
And Sam, I haven't heard anything from Samson Lukovic yet. Of course, who's a promoter and looks after Javier Fortuna. There's an agreement in place. Samson and Team Fortuna are happy with that?
I heard many. I've heard constantly from Samson. He wanted to fight Linares. He wanted to have that contract upheld. At the end, Haney Linares is a great match, and he understood it, and he's gonna fight the winner of Linares Haney.
At the minute, does Javier Fortuna have a fight? Do you know if Ryan Garcia has a fight? Do they have anything lined up? They could fight each other.
That would be the optimal. That would be the optimal, to have Fortuna and Garcia fight each other. That's one of the proposals that is still on the table. And with May coming up, things should get moving. We are being flexible, trying to accommodate and to let the things move forward so the fights happen. So hopefully it will play out this way. It's a great division, great tournament of fights that could be happening, and we expect this to be a great year in the lightweight division.
And that would eliminate, any confusion around Ryan Garcia or Javier Fortuna. If Garcia was to box Fortuna, the winner of that would be the interim champion and the mandatory, and there would be less confusion. Would the WBC be in a position to order that fight?
Probably yes. It's something that we have discussed. Garcia petitioned for a voluntary defense after beating Campbell and acknowledging that Haney and him want the fight to take place later during the year. So he petitioned to do a voluntary defense. And we have been talking about possibly being Fortuna. That would be the optimum. And then you take one out of the equation. But we're just moving along. We're trying to play the puzzle and keep that puzzle constructing, putting the pieces, putting into it, and not breaking it.
Hopefully that's the case. I mean, as me and you have spoken about over the years now, this all started really. It's all Mikey Garcia's fault. This started a while back when Mikey Garcia had the WBC title. With the pandemic, it's obviously not made things any easier. I think it would be good to just kind of get a little bit of clarity as we move forward this year. So hopefully that does happen. You mentioned May. May is a big month for boxing, as always. None bigger than, of course, Cinco de Mayo weekend. We're talking about Canelo again. The unification bout with him and Billy Joe Saunders. Great for boxing to have Canelo Alvarez back on Cinco de Mayo. Of course, last year we didn't have it due to the pandemic. We have it back now. Brilliant for the sport.
Yes, this is huge. Canelo suffered last year because he couldn't do the Cinco de Mayo, couldn't do the September fight, two of the dates that he had owned traditionally. And he's determined to fight 4 times this year. He's determined to unify the division. And it's a great moment in the super middleweight division. Saunders against Canelo is a tremendous match. And everybody's excited and to see. We're all expecting to hear where the fight's going to take place, and it's going to really be a great month for the sport.
Any indication as to whether or not the fight will happen in Las Vegas or Texas? I know Texas or Dallas in particular has been kind of mooted as a lead or as a front runner for that fight. Does the WBC have any indication?
No. We have no information. Vegas, Nevada is still managing the pandemic situation. As we saw, Florida was very much open. Texas is completely open now. So I believe those are the three potential sites for a fight of this magnitude.
And finally, for May, another fight, an undisputed fight, Mauricio. You know how we all love an undisputed champion, Mauricio. Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez. Now, that's a fight that has been brewing for a long time within the WBC. When Josh Taylor had the silver title, he was coming up with Jose Ramirez. Now they meet for all of the belts on May the 22nd. That is going to Las Vegas. And again, another brilliant fight for boxing.
Yes, that's a major fight. I'm very happy. The WBC supported Josh Taylor from the beginning with the international title, then the silver championship. He has won the World Boxing Super Series, which was a great platform as well. And it's going to be a tremendous fight. It's great to see a boxing match with all the 4 belts on the line.
It certainly is. Okay, moving on. And last division that we'll talk about, because we always end up talking about it anyway, is the heavyweight division. You know where we were going with this, Mauricio. First of all, what have you heard from Deontay Wilder recently? We've not heard an awful lot from him. I've not heard much from kind of Team Wilder and the Wilder camp. Any indication as to when he could potentially return to the ring? Obviously, we know that there's potential for Wilder Fury 3, which is remarkable considering all of the things we've heard over the last year, but we've seen Tyson Fury talking about that. What's the WBC's knowledge of Deontay Wilder's situation currently?
We have not had any communications with Deontay. I reached out on a personal level a couple of times, but I have not heard from Deontay. Just a few things that social media has shown. I don't really follow much, only what sometimes pops up or is sent to me, and he's in the mix. He's a great interest. He was champion for 5 years, the biggest knockout ratio, and a very powerful and a champion that he deserves to be back one day to have a title shot. So we're just waiting to see what's going to happen in the heavyweight division.
We certainly are. We've been waiting for a while now to see what's happening with the heavyweight division, with a lot of divisions. The WBC heavyweight title is now over a year without being contested. Is that a concern from the WBC's perspective?
Well, we have, of course, the pandemic is an issue, but we made it clear that we were going to do everything possible to allow the big fights to take place, whether it's Tyson Fury against Joshua, whether it's the third fight, Fury Wilder. We are providing Tyson Fury and his side the support and the flexibility to allow them to go out and land the big fight that the boxing world is waiting for.
Will there come a point where the WBC looks to mandate Tyson Fury to box somebody, or seeks for the WBC title to be defended if these negotiations between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder drag on? Does the WBC have any idea of a time frame in which you'd like to see the title defended?
We are writing letters. We are in communications. I don't want to portray as being um, I'm sorry, the word protagonism. This is about the big fights. Let's wait. Let's do everything possible. Let's not put obstacles. Let's let them make them and go into the ring. That's what the world has been waiting for many years. Uh, they have all expressed continuously that they are going to fight. So it would be very easy to me to say, "Oh yes, I'm going to start and gonna start make taking actions." Our action is let's make the big fight that everyone wants to see.
But there will come a point where we do need to see the WBC title defended. That's fair to
Of
say.
course, of course, of course, absolutely yes.
Okay, Mauricio, before I let you go,
Look, let me just. We were led to believe for many, many months that December 19 was going to be Fury Wilder. So that took a long time, many months of the WBC's administration with that information, that knowledge. And then it didn't happen. Um, we expressed our full support for Fury Joshua to happen. And now it's taking time, and eventually they have to announce they're either doing it or not. But I don't want to try to say, yeah, I'm going to go out and mandate anything. We're letting them negotiate. Hopefully, the fight will take place. Either one of those fights would be the great fight for the sport of boxing.
yeah, sure. I know you weren't trying to put any pressure on anybody, of course. Where does that leave the mandatory situation? We've kind of with everything being delayed so much over the last 12 months, and we obviously had initially kind of a February. I mean, everything's kind of gone into one now because of the pandemic. But the original date for the mandatory, I'm assuming, is going to be pushed back. We're still no closer to getting a fight for the WBC heavyweight title. Where would that leave the winner of next weekend's bout, or 2 weekends time, about the rematch between Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte for the interim title?
At this moment, there is no mandatory contender in the heavyweight division. Um, there's a rematch happening for the interim title. Sensational. I love the way they are building it. The Rumble in the Rock to do a fight in Gibraltar. I mean, it's great history. Uh, I wish I had the opportunity to be there in that fight. And it's a very good match. It was one of the most important results of last year. A incredible, surprising knockout by Povetkin to Dillian Whyte. And unfortunately, Dillian lost that fight. Now he's trying to regain his interim title, and it should be a tremendous fight on at the end of the month.
The winner of that fight will, of course, become the interim champion. But there's no early indication of when a mandatory could be due for the WBC.
Yes, at this moment, we are not addressing that situation. We are waiting to see what's happening in the division. We want to have absolute support for the things to happen, and we will address it when it's time. Whenever this fight happens, then the interim champion is going to be named. So there's going to be an interim champion on March 27th.
Okay, Mauricio, before I let you go, final word on somebody else who's returning to the ring tonight, somebody who has well worn the famous green and gold belt in the past. David Benavidez returns to the ring. He made the weight. He was inside 168 pounds, which I know you'll be very happy to hear. Good to have him back in the mix at 168 pounds, and I'm assuming he has his eyes set on Canelo Alvarez as the WBC champion at 168 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, life just turned around with a shocking surprise when he did a voluntary defense and he couldn't make weight. He lost the title on the scale, and from there everything just turned. And now we have Canelo as a champion. Benavides, I thought he was not able to do this weight. We ranked them in light heavyweight immediately after that situation. He went to an expert. He went to the medical. He sent us a medical report stating that he can safely make 168. and he proved it. He sent to the WBC every week. He was sending a video with his weight from 2 months ago, and when I saw him yesterday, 167.2, there it is, and he looks great. His body looks sensational. Let's see what effect that will happen in the ring. I hope he did not but I saw him lose the weight gradually, so he should be very strong, very powerful, and he has his mind set on recovering his WBC belt. So it's a success story. It's a beginning of a new story for him. He overcame the adversity of a doping violation, and he's just trying to move on and trying to recover his championship.
Just finally, David Benavidez has been talking about another WBC champion in Jamal Charlo, of course, as WBC 160 pounds champion. What's the latest with Jamal Charlo?
Charlo, I believe he has a fight set up for the summer, but I am not certain. I am not completely sure about the status of Charlo. I will let you know on our next call.
Okay, well, I look forward to it. Well, a little birdie told me that the PBC might be announcing their schedule next week or the week after. So hopefully we get to see it then. And of course, we will catch up and pick the bones out of it, so to speak. But Mauricio, always a pleasure catching up with you. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Hopefully we don't leave it too long the next time. But a real pleasure as always. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Rob. Have a great weekend.